things were, I think, improving. People were going to school. There wasn't as much violence as there had been previously. From a legacy point of view, you just hope that they perhaps have a bit of a glimpse of that's a way of doing business instead of ruling with fear and violence.
Welcome to the podcast where we track down Australian war veterans, have a chat with them, and hear their stories. I'm Alex Lloyd, and this is Life on the Line.
The single greatest sacrifice I've made is my family.
We weren't out there to take country, we were out there to do something. That was our job.
I did feel a lot of regret.
Friends were still getting killed.
It got to the point where, you're going to funerals quite often.
Do I lead under fire?
And that was a heavy responsibility, I guess, on my shoulders that I didn't want to screw up.
War itself is horrific. It's a horror story. It should never be dressed up as if it's something glorious.
Not what you can do for yourself, but what can you do for your country.
The volunteer for service was in effect to put your life on the line.
I'm Sharon Mascall-Dare, and you're listening to Life on the Line. In today's podcast, we meet Brigadier Graham Goodwin CSC, who is currently the commander of 9th Brigade Australian Army. Brigadier Goodwin has had an extensive and significant career in both the Australian Defence Force and South Australia Police. His career has taken him on several deployments overseas, working with both the United Nations and NATO. Brigadier Goodwin, thank you very much for joining us on Life on the Line.
Hey Sharon, it's really good to be here and it's great to be talking with you.
So tell us a bit about your early life to begin with. Where did you grow up?
I'm a South Australian sort of through and through. I sort of grew up in the suburb of Campbelltown. It was, I guess, one of those areas, probably not all that well to do and the like, but it was a, pretty idyllic sort of childhood, play cricket in the street and kick the footy around and do all those sorts of things. And, we didn't have a lot of money, but it was just a great childhood. And, all my best friends lived close by. Yeah, it was a great life.
So when did the military come to have an influence in your life? Did you have anybody else in your family who'd also served?
Very distantly, there was a few great uncles and the like. I guess my parents came from country South Australia, up in the Melrose, Flinders Ranges area. I did research a few of them. Unfortunately, that was in World War I and they didn't survive very long on the battlefield. So there is a few people in the distant past, but probably not that much in my recent sort of life, so to speak. But I guess as a kid growing up, you're sort of thinking, what are you going to do and how are you going to do it? And I guess, when I was a teenager, the way you joined the army was you'd cut out an application in the newspaper and fill it in and you'd post it off, and that's eventually what I did. So that's how it worked. I joined at 17 and joined the reserve. I had a good job at the time. I just started a job my dad was pretty keen to see me keep going with my work and the like. So I thought the reserve offered a good opportunity to try before you buy, so to speak, if I was going to go into the regular army, so to speak. But it didn't eventuate that way, and the rest is history, so to speak.
Did it meet your expectations then when you first joined up? What were you expecting perhaps the Defence Force to be like, and what was the reality from your perspective?
Oh, look, Sharon, I often say this, I was a 17-year-old kid, I didn't know how to iron, I probably wasn't eating the right food, I was pretty fit, I liked that sort of stuff. And I guess it was at that time when I joined and I did my recruit course out at Hampstead, I guess the realisation hit a little bit because it was when the Falklands War started. So they shut the gates and the like, and you think, well, what could eventuate here, and away you go. But what I say, when I joined and the people I served with and all the rest of it, and I'm not denigrating or downplaying them and all the rest of it, I see the people who join now undertake recruit training and the like, they were far smarter than I was. They're far smarter, sharper, more aware and all the rest of it. I guess I was on a bit of an adventure and, it's landed me where it's landed me. But, when I first kicked off, I guess I didn't I actually liked the orderly get out of bed, make your bed sort of lifestyle and all the rest of it, and that's probably set me up pretty well for what's occurred later in life.
So what was the corps that you were assigned to when you first joined up?
They gave you a magazine prior to, and they flick through it and the like. You sort of look at engineers, and you look at MPs, you look at a number of things, and couldn't go past the infantry. That's the one I chose, and I guess later in life when I did my officer training, that's the corps I chose as well. I think it's the one that sort of suited me, and I like what it had to offer. Even as a soldier, working in a team, relying on people and the like, that was really attractive to me, and I really enjoyed that environment.
Now, your first significant deployment was back in 2012 to East Timor. How did that come about?
I guess it was at that time where you think anybody, any soldier, any person serving in defence, when you've done it for a long time and you've done a number of things, you've done your courses, and you look at your self-development, you look at testing yourself and the like. I guess the ultimate test in those areas is to go on deployment, on operations overseas. So I guess at that point in time, 2012, I'd been working hard at my police career. So I guess I sort of weighted it more on the police side. Things were starting to stabilise there a little bit, where it gave me the opportunity to perhaps look at doing something and making a contribution on one of the operations overseas. So I guess these things just don't happen because you want them to happen then, So then you start making inquiries and the like, and I was quite lucky. I was doing some work out at Defence Science and Technology Organisation, as it was then, it's now group. But I was doing a bit of work out there, and just very fortunate to meet some people from our DOCM, our Officer Career Management group, and sort of said, well, these are the things I'd really like to do, thinking, you could pick it off like a bit of a smorgasbord, that what about this one, what about that one, and all the rest of it. And they very quickly put me back in my place and said none of that was available. But they did have something which was available in East Timor. It was the Operation Tower, which was attached to the United Nations force there. I don't think it was all that popular. I don't know why. It was a 12-month deployment. So I immediately put my hand up for that and said I would go. And I guess that was probably mid-year. And then, of course, you don't hear anything until about November, and then the phone call comes, and it's you've got to get your act together fairly quickly, do your pre-deployment training, had to do a combat medics course and the like, so that as soon as the notification came in, I had to effectively leave work at that point just to get all of those qualifications done. And I think it was just in the new year of 2012, I and a couple of other, one Army guy and another Navy guy, we jumped on the plane and that's sort of away we went. So yeah, it was a chance. But I guess you've got to make your own chances and the like. So you put yourself out there, stay qualified, stay ready, stay current, and all the rest of it. And when the phone call comes, it's away you go.
So take us back to the situation as it was at that time in East Timor. What were you stepping into?
I guess it was a fairly sort of stable period. It was 2012. It was, I think, the second election cycle was occurring that year. So when I went there, they had, of course, the Australian-New Zealand International Stabilisation Force, the ISF. We weren't attached to that. We were attached to what they called the Military Liaison Group, which was part of the UN in Obrigado Barracks. I guess I was one of many people. We had a Kiwi, a New Zealand Colonel, Colonel Martin Dransfield, who was our commander at the time. And then there were, a large collection of contributing nations. Our job at the time was about border security and border incursions and violence in the border regions. I guess that expanded out to a degree where we looked at food security and the like. Being the UN force spread all around East Timor, where we were sort of like on the ground, so we could actually report on those things going forward. When I first arrived, it was quite interesting, because there was various roles and responsibilities, and I was given a training role at that point in time, and I sort of thought, well, this is not why I'm here, but anyway, it was the best thing that ever occurred, because what we did then was we did a lot of laws of armed conflict training with the FFDTL at the time, and it was all about rules of engagement, humanitarian assistance, keeping the peace, doing all those sorts of things. And I've done a bit of that in police work as well at a lower scale. So we cycled a lot of people through there and the like. And look, there was a little bit of violence during the election cycle. But all in all, I think it was pretty peaceful, and the government at the time actually commented on the fact that we'd done all of this training and we'd actually invested heavily in guiding people through, and that there were ways of resolving some of these issues apart from going straight to shooting and the like. So, that was a really, really positive experience. And as I say, we got through the election in pretty good shape. And pretty soon after that, that's when the UN announced that they were withdrawing from the country. The job was done. So effectively, the operation I was on, Op Tower, that was the last sort of, UN group there. Of course, we've still got our defence cooperation people over there doing a magnificent job, but that was that particular phase of the UN operation. And I found it exceedingly rewarding, and worked with men and women from so many fantastic countries that we still stay in touch today to a degree, and they were from diverse groups, diverse backgrounds and the like, but we all came together, and they are really good friends. Really enjoyed their company and still do today.
So you mentioned the fact that there was an element of risk, that there was violence. How did you manage that at the time? Because obviously you were very experienced when you deployed, but still to be confronted with that in an operational scenario, it can be confronting.
Look, I don't want to overstate that. I mean, I guess a lot of the violence, and there was a lot of violence actually directed towards the United Nations. Now, whether that was opportune or directed, who knows, why, but that resulted in a lot of smashing up of vehicles, smashing of windows, doing all those sorts of things. I and my colleagues, I don't speak for them, but I felt very safe when I was there and doing the things that I did. We had our plans where, if things didn't occur, we weren't armed. Of course, we had our body armour and helmets and the like as a form of protection. But we were living in the community. We had really strong connections with the people in the community, and, they would sort of let us know when they were, concerned about things going on in the street and the like. So, no, I think we had good mechanisms, we had good planning. These are things that you just work through while you're there. And I guess, once again, my policing sort of stuff, I think I've confronted very similar things. So you've just got to treat it for what it is and be aware of it, absolutely, and make sure you plan for it accordingly, but you don't let it dominate your life. Otherwise, as I used to say to some people, if particularly in East Timor, if you let it dominate what you were doing, you would never leave the gate. You would never go and do anything. You would never interact, and that would be a very sad 12 months to spend your life, because it's a fantastic country filled with fantastic people who are trying to live their lives and have a good life, because they've that hasn't always been the case.
Now, you were awarded a CJOPS Gold Commendation off the back of that deployment. What can you tell us about that and how that came about?
Oh, look, I think I was very lucky. I think when you go on these things, you work hard. and that's an expectation, but it's a good thing to do. You know, we did a lot of medical missions to very remote areas. You know, we did language training. We did a lot of training, as I say, in trying to improve the ethics and the standards of the Defence Force and the like. I led a small team. They did a lot of hard work. It was, you know, when you're doing work that's just really good work where you actually see really good outcomes, it's not really work anymore. It's you know, it's just something that's just working for you. And in the end, while I was there, I became the deputy commander. It was a fairly unique experience because we had a New Zealand commander and an Australian deputy commander, and they always tried to avoid that because of that ANZAC alliance sort of thing. But I was given approval, and so away we went. And so our relationship was so strong, and the working bonds that we had with all of those particular groups. And so really, why was that? Well, I think I was just very lucky, in the right place at the right time, and hopefully made a difference. And, you know, other people see that, but you don't do these things for those things. And I was just thankful for the opportunity.
Let's turn now to your next significant posting, which was as the commanding officer of the 10th 27th Battalion, the Royal South Australia Regiments. And indeed, later on, we'll talk about your current role, where you're now the commander of 9th Brigade that 1027 is part of. What was it like being posted into that role?
Well, it's fairly unique, because it was while I was in East Timor. There was a colonel, and I forget his name, but there was a colonel in charge of the International Stabilisation Force who called me over, you know, invited me in for a coffee, and you sort of go, what's going on here, and all the rest of it. And he said, I'm here to tell you that one of us has got command, and it's not me. It was a pretty big thing for me, because I actually joined that unit as a soldier, you know, all those years ago. And so, you know, it was 10th Battalion at the time, at the Torrens Training Depot in Adelaide. And of course, they then linked 10th and the 27th Battalion. To go back as the commanding officer, and I guess you aspire and you work towards it, and you do all the things that you're supposed to do to align yourself with that. But there's no givens in Army or the Defence Force. You know, things could change and whatever, and it's a very competitive process. So it was just, I think it was just going to be a fantastic opportunity to actually go back. And, you know, dare I say, you know, some of the people that I'd actually joined with as private soldiers were still there and the like. So the sense of responsibility and the sense of obligation and the sense of actually achieving stuff wasn't lost on me. So it was a very big honour, remains a very big honour, you know, and it's something that, you know, I'm very proud of, as every CO should be, as every commanding officer should be. A great responsibility, but it's your time to actually develop people, make it a better place, and all the rest of it. So that's very much what I've focused on.
And it was the ANZAC centenary commemoration period back in 2014.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you at the time? Being back in 1027, where you started your career as a reservist, it must have had a real significance for you.
Look, it did. And I guess I do read a lot of history. I do like the personal stories, and, you know, I think it keeps you honest, you know, about why people did the things they did, and you get to enjoy the life you get to enjoy because of the sacrifices that other people make. It was, I guess, at a time too where, you know, we'd been building up, you know, it's coming, the centenary of ANZAC is coming, and there'd been a lot of talk about it and all the rest of it, and you're thinking, well, what am I going to do, you know, in that sort of period and all the rest of it. Not to get too lost in that either, because we've got to do other things as well. And, you know, we're not going to become just the ceremonial battalion within South Australia. You know, we also had to make contributions to, you know, some of our operations, you know, around the globe, as well as domestically with our resolute obligations. It was a really important time to engage with, you know, past members. It was really important to make that connection with past members and current members so that everybody was included in that. It was important to include a lot of the associations and, you know, where we were heading and all the rest of it. But it was also important to temper a lot of those things. And look, I think we achieved that. There were some really good celebrations. There were some really good opportunities to get back into the community, of where people were drawn from, that actually, went on the ships over to, Egypt, then on to Gallipoli and the like. It was really important to recognise families and, wives, brothers, sisters, mothers, uncles, grandmas and aunts and all. It was important to sort of include all of those people because, once again, it's easy just to focus on the person carrying the rifle and all the rest of it. But I reflect on my own point of view there because, as I said, my family came from the farm up in the Melrose area and they lost a couple of their sons, and so they were the ones who were going to carry on the farm. So it was, apart from the devastation of losing a loved one, how are we going to keep this going, and are we going to be able to stay here? And in doing that process, so many people came forward and said, I found this old tin under the bed, and they opened the tin and there's the letters and or a medal or whatever and all the rest of it. So it was a great time, but it was also a great time to serve and to do the things that we did. There were some good opportunities for the units here in South Australia. And I guess, that was probably, the first opportunity I also had. We had 7 Royal Australia Regiment up the road. The commanding officer at the time was Lieutenant Colonel Mal Wells. So it was a good opportunity to actually form a bit of a relationship between the two battalions, which endures today. And Mal, I see him quite regularly and all the rest of it. So it was a great working relationship, and it just again provided some really good opportunities to the men and women who, as I say, joined the reserve, but had the ability to actually go on and do bigger and better things.
I remember there being the Freedom of the City parade through the centre of Adelaide. I remember being on the side of the road and watching you march up. I mean, that must have been as part of those centenary commemorations. That must have been a really big moment.
Because we did a parade at Unley, Unley's own, the 27th Battalion. We had the freedom of entry of Adelaide. The mayor at the time, was a big supporter, had always assisted us wherever he could. And I guess that's a part of what I was saying earlier about it's just so good to include everybody, give something back, include, and you can only do that in a few ways. There's not, you don't have a lot of scope to do big thing, whatever, and all the rest of it. So these smaller things were just, an opportunity to, include the people of Adelaide. We did the parade. Challenged by a friend of mine in the police. So there was a bit of a wink there, but that's okay. And then sort of went into the council chambers where you could have a bit of a tour and all the rest of it, and the exchanging of gifts and the parchments and all the rest of it. Yeah, no, it's a fantastic thing, and we just need to recognise that defence here in South Australia, the Army, the wider Defence Force is held in such high regard, and it's not something that I take lightly. It's not something I take for granted. It's something that's actually been, I think, well earned, and it's been earned through history. The people before me, the people after me, and the like. And so, we enjoy a strong reputation here, and that beholds upon us that we just need to be very careful with that and actually remember those people that provide that support and assist us where we can, because their support, whether it be in the family, whether it be at local government, whether it be at state government, whether it be at federal government, is just so critical to the things that we need to do. And, I find it's a bit of a force multiplier. If we don't have that support, well, that just makes our job that little bit harder.
We'll come back to that community engagement and community response shortly. But before we do that, let's talk about your deployment to Afghanistan in 2016, because that was also a significant posting. What was happening in Afghanistan at that time?
I guess you put your name down for some of these things, and they sort of turn around. They go, right, you're one of 500, And so when I finished command of 1027, I took the family over to America. My son's a basketballer and likes all things America, and we hadn't had a holiday for a long time, so away we went. And I hadn't said anything about maybe deploying again or anything. I always had a strong leaning to go again and to test myself in a different field or in a different country. It was 1 in 500, 1 in 200, 1 in 100, 1 in 50, and just before we flew out, you're down to the last 10, and there's only one position. So anyway, and I remember it very clearly. I was in New Jersey watching a ice hockey game, and you get the phone call, you're it, and away you go. And now there was a bit, my goodness, I hadn't done a lot of planning for it, and I hadn't sort of, I guess, told a lot of people about it, thinking it would never occur, but it did. And so I messed people around a little bit, going, I need to get a few things lined up, which I did, whilst I was still at the ice hockey, and then we sort of went from there. But this was this particular task. It was again an interesting one, where it was a small group of people. We were stationed in Kabul at the Kabul International Airport, HKI, as it's well known. And we, as a team, I think there was about 12 of us under the leadership of Colonel Andy McBarron, were the advisors to the Kabul Garrison Command. Now, that was, I guess the Kabul Garrison Command was a group. It was police, it was Army, and it was what they called the NDS, National Directorate of Security. NDS, I think it was, yeah. And so effectively what we were doing is trying to get all of those three arms to work together to provide better security and protection for the people of Kabul. I guess things had calmed down to a degree. There was still, the regular IED bomb blast. There was the regular execution going on. There was the maybe not so regular, but there were instances of, coalition forces being killed by people who they were training. We were there, but it was relatively calm and stable at the time. But I guess there was still a lot of, suspicion between police and Army and the security and the intelligence agencies, where they had to work together to actually get the benefit of providing the service that they did. I was the intelligence advisor. I guess I got some of those skills because I run our state intelligence branch in the police. So very fortunate there and very lucky. And so we would assist them in conducting proactive and reactive operations within the Kabul area and the near area where the near area which could influence things in Kabul. So it was patrolling. We would direct and assist them with patrolling, use of UAV, and the like, and like that. So, again, I was very fortunate, very lucky, worked with a great team of people. We worked to a British commander while we were there, who was a great commander. I just got to experience all of those facets of security, operations, public protection and the like. And we would go daily outside the wire to their compound. It wasn't a large distance, whatever. And we worked side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and they were good people who were trying to make a difference. But of course, we know what's occurred since then. But I think while we were there, they were on a good track. They did require a lot more assistance and the like, but I think there was a different, as part of the whole coalition force there, things were, I think, improving, and I know that's easy to say, but people were going to school. There wasn't as much violence as there had been previously. And when there was, I remember this quite distinctly, when there was a car bomb go off or, something terrible occur in the community and all the rest of it, the population would come out quite strongly on their Facebook posts and all the rest of it and go, what's going on here? This is Kabul in, 2016, this is not the Kabul of old, this shouldn't occur and the like. So that's where you sort of think that public attitude and community attitude would actually, protect, or not allow these things to occur. But of course, it didn't go the way we would have liked it to have gone.
What do you think then was the legacy of what your particular rotation achieved over there? Oh,
look, it's probably hard to see a strong legacy now, not being able to go back and see what's sort of going on. I think the legacy, and I equate this with, my own policing career, working in the community. We get the success that we get from a policing point of view because of the consent and the assistance of the community. You can't be everywhere, so you rely on community support, community engagement to actually, achieve the results that you do. From a legacy point of view, if anything, perhaps you show people there's a better way of doing it. There's a better way to live. There's a better way of controlling behaviour. There's mechanisms that if you do the right thing all of the time and you're not corrupt and people have confidence in you and the like, you will get the support of the people. It takes time, it takes investment and the like, but you've really got to go. From a legacy point of view, you just hope that they perhaps have a bit of a glimpse of that's a way of doing business instead of, ruling with fear and violence and the like, because, that might get you an immediate result, but it doesn't get you any long-term result or the support of the people, and neither should it.
Now, you obviously returned back to Australia, and today you're the commander of the 9th Brigade. Now, 9th Brigade's been through a very busy period with Operation Bushfire Assist back in 2019-2020, Operation COVID Assist. What's been your experience of this intense period of activity for the brigade?
And I reflect back, something I said earlier, the people who joined today were far smarter and far more savvy and far more skilled, far better educated than I ever was. So when I came back from Afghanistan, I went into Career Management Army and I guess I did 3 years there, and it was a fantastic opportunity. I really enjoyed that. And again, it was, a good opportunity to shape and assist Army getting to where it needed to be with the right people, right place, right time. But I always reflect, it was, hot days, of course, tracking bushfires everywhere, which I would do in my civilian job. I was coming in as the Deputy Commander of the 9th Brigade, a posting that I was very much looking forward to because I'd seen some of the work that was being done there and the like. The commander at the time was Brigadier Damien Cantwell, who I'd met previously in my CMA days and the like, so we'd sort of laid a bit of a foundation there. And then I remember there was a box, a box of your chattels, your pads and your pens and your, worldly things, probably junk actually, that you take with you. And I remember taking it to my office, and I was looking for an office and I didn't have one, so I kicked out the lawyers that were in an office. So they saw the funny side, but that's okay. So I put the box down and you could just see all these things coming. And then the commander, Brigadier Cantwell, rang me and said, I'm flying over. We think that things are going to occur and all the rest of it. Now, I jokingly say 4 months later, I unpacked that box. And it was just, of course you wish you didn't have to do these things. Of course you wish there was no fire or flood or COVID or whatever, but there is, and as I say, They used to say death and taxes are the guaranteed things. Well, I think natural disasters, is the third tier of that now. And we've seen so much of it, and there's been such tragic loss of life, tragic loss of property and animals and the like. It's just, it would weigh very heavily on people who have been through this 2 or 3 times, and we need to recognise that. But I guess you're in this position, and I guess I had a lot of connection with the emergency services and the like. It's just so refreshing and reassuring that when you're called upon to actually provide some assistance, whether it be a small thing, whether it be a big thing, that everybody, irrespective of who they were, where they were, what skill sets they bring and all the rest of it, they were ready to assist. And, the CFS at the time were doing a magnificent job. The police were doing a magnificent job. The other emergency support services were doing a magnificent job and all the rest of it. So it was a great thing to support them in their endeavours to protect people, save people, assist in some of the recovery efforts and the like. Now, it's gone on for a long time. We sort of finished or came to a bit of an end of our involvement in the bushfire, particularly, Kangaroo Island and up in the hills. And then we sort of rolled straight into COVID. It is what it is. And it's, you don't get to choose or pick when you lead or when you provide support or you don't provide support. It's an enduring thing. And, as I say, you wish it never occurred, but it was a great thing to be able to just assist people, just make a contribution, provide a bit of comfort and confidence at those critical times. And you should never underestimate just actually turning up and having a cup of tea with somebody or having a chat with somebody on a checkpoint or driving a truck and sort of going, do you need some water or something like that, or dropping a bit of hay off or whatever. These things in the scheme of things are probably pretty small and all the rest of it, but I think it just provided, as part of the complete response, and as I say, we were very much a support act to the CFS, the SES in the floods, health and police during COVID and all the rest of it. We need to be very clear on that. We just play a small part in I think, providing a bit of comfort to the community at a time when people are scared. People are scared and people are concerned and people are worried, and that's a great thing to be able to do. And that's the thing that we should always remember, that that's what we bring to the table. Yes, we train for big spectrum, higher spectrum warfighting activities, but we also serve the nation, serve and protect the nation. So it's a good thing to be involved and to have made a contribution along those lines.
Looking back over that time and then your career as a whole in the Australian Army, you've seen such a change in how reservists are deployed. How would you summarise that perhaps for people who are listening to the podcast that are not familiar with how that works, and really from your own experience, how you've now had that shift in identity to some degree?
I guess for a long time it was just really unclear, like particularly in the reserve space, the CERCAT 5 space. What do you bring to the table? What are your skills, knowledge, skills, and attributes, and all the rest of it? How I sort of you've got to be relevant. You've got to bring something to the table. You've got to be relevant and go from there. I have people who work for me, they're orthopaedic surgeons, I have people who are arborists, I have people who are nurses. The breadth of the skills that they bring to the table is immense. And so when they're confronted with a problem or something that needs to be solved, or how you're going to address these things and all the rest of it, they can make a contribution. So therefore you are a valued member around that table. I reflect on that very heavily, and like particularly during bushfire and COVID and the like, you had reservists working alongside regular full-time members and all the rest of it. And I can tell you there was not one issue, not one problem. And then that group working alongside police and CFS and SES and the like, not one issue. We come from the community, as does the wider Defence Force. And so we can therefore associate with, be a member of that community and make a contribution to that. So I think, for me, what has been so fantastic out of all of these tragedies is that, we are now looking at a sense of purpose and a sense of contribution and a sense of relevance to what's our role and function. Now, that comes with baggage too. It comes with expectation, So we just need to make sure we train our people, we give them all the correct tools and the knowledge that they need, and I need to make them better people. I often talk about that through all of our training activities and the like, because if they're better people, they'll be a better person for defence, but they'll also be a better person at home, and they'll also be a better person for the employer and all the rest of it. And that's what I think is our point of difference: community spirit, community engagement, and we are a volunteer to assist in the protection of the nation.
So I have to ask the question, given your lifetime of service, not only to the Australian Defence Force and also to the South Australia Police, have you become a better person?
Oh, look, I think so. As I say, the person, that was a 17-year-old and all the rest of it, has changed a lot. I've learned a lot. I continue to learn. And none of this is about me. As I say, you walk out and you see the people who are actually doing the task and the role. And I saw it in Afghanistan, and I saw it in East Timor. I saw it on the borders during COVID. I saw it in Kangaroo Island, with the bushfires and working with the farmers and the livestock. I saw it in the Adelaide Hills, with the great work that 16 Regiment was doing up there, because they're very much a part of it there. You can't but help become a better person. It levels you, it grounds you. It actually takes you to a place where things that you thought were important previously are not that important now. And when you have a look at your mates and your family and making a contribution and not letting people down, those are the things that are important, and these are some of the things, as we, come together and amalgamate some of our forces with one brigade, they're some of the things that I really want to instill in people about the impact that you can have, not only on operations overseas and domestically, but within the local community as well.
So for young people listening to your story today who might be considering following in your footsteps, they might see themselves as the future commander of 9th Brigade, or indeed another formation within the Australian Defence Force. Yeah. What would you say to them? What's your advice?
There's a lot to choose from in life now. There's a lot of activities to choose. We're a very connected society. There's a lot to offer and all the rest of it. What I say, and I mean, as I say, I am started off as a soldier and, ended where I've ended and all the rest of it. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. Let me reassure you about that. But what I say is this, is that it's good to be challenged. It's good to be challenged. It's good to be a part of a team. It's good to be relied upon, but it's also good to make a contribution. I work in a lot of high functioning teams and the like. But I guess, what I say to everybody, that may be thinking of joining the Army or joining the Defence Force and the like, it's great to make a contribution. It's great to be a part of a team. It's great to make a contribution as part of that team. It's great to work in the community and do things locally here, or it's great to work in communities overseas and make a difference. And that's a point of difference for us. It's that community spirit. It's that challenging yourself to what's your role and what's your position in that, and to challenge yourself and to make a difference. And by doing those things, as I said earlier, I think you become a better person. And, becoming a better person actually is a point of difference for you in your civilian world and the like. And, I am constantly reminded about people who have another job or whatever, and they are held in very high regard within their employment circle and all the rest of it. And I'd like to think that defence has something to do with that as well. So, what's my advice? Give it a go. It's a great environment for people to grow.
Brigadier Graham Goodwin CSC, thank you very much for sharing your insight, your experiences, and indeed your story of service with Life on the Line.
I've been very privileged. That's not lost on me, at any time, or on any day. But I look after a lot of fantastic people, and they do the hard work, and I'm just very lucky to be in this position to look after them, to enable them to do the things that they do. So thank you for your time, and it's great to have a chat.
You've been listening to Life on the Line. I'm Sharon Mascall-Dare. Thank you for listening.
Find out more about this podcast at www.lifeonthelinepodcast.com and join the conversation on social media at Life on the Line Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and at LOTL Pod on Twitter. Life on the Line is brought to you by Thistle Productions. Artwork by Big Cat Design, music by Dan Van Werkhoven. Thanks for listening, and lest we forget,